The US-China trade war is the new US-Soviet Union Cold War. Just like Ghana navigated the Cold War by founding the non-aligned movement, Ghana is navigating the trade war by maintaining neutral trade relationship with both countries. My name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about Ghana's international relations and trade. Subscribe if you are interested in intellectual conversations. Today, we are going to talk about how President John Dramani Mahama is leading Ghana on the same path President Nkrumah led Ghana when it came to geopolitical alignment, right? Let's start with the Nkrumah part, and then we would come to the Mahama part. So, the Akosombo Dam was built with money from the World Bank and other allies of the US like Italy, right? What you don't know is President Nkrumah of Ghana visited Russia. And in Russia, he saw hydroelectric power, how they were using water to do electrical powering in the country. I have a whole video on it I'll upload here. And he wanted to do same in Ghana. So, who did he go to? Russia? No. He started courting companies in the West, and something happened that led to the US becoming involved in that dam project. World Bank, a Western organization, funded Akosombo Dam. Italy, a Western country, built the Akosombo Dam. So Nkrumah got idea for Akosombo Dam from the East and built it with the West. That is an example of what we talk about when we say Ghana is non-aligned. Actually, there are 4 or 5 countries in the world who founded the non-aligned movement in 1961. Those countries, which they call the Big Five, are Yugoslavia, India, Egypt, Ghana, and Indonesia. But there were 25 countries that attended the first founding meeting of the non-aligned movement. The non-aligned movement were a group of countries who didn't want to belong to the Eastern or Western bloc of the world. So in the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union were the 2 big superpowers in the world. And countries were falling in line with either the US or the Soviet Union. So Western countries fell in line with, what's the name? The US. That is why we still call them the West till date, even though the US is far from Western Europe, right? And Eastern countries, most of them fell in line with the Soviet Union. But countries that, especially in Africa and Asia, that felt like this geographical conflict between the US and the Soviet Union have nothing to do with us, decided to form what we call the non-aligned movement. The non-aligned movement was not just a group, it was an ideology that drove how we did business with the rest of the world. So the Cold War ended in 1991. And if you ask me today, I don't think Russia is a superpower anymore. Russia thinks it is a superpower, but it is not. The US and China are the 2 superpowers in the world right now. I feel about Russia the way I feel about the UK. The only reason we care about the UK is the UK used to be powerful. The UK is not an important country to anybody anymore. Except the fact that the US still, relies on the UK for geographical issues when it comes to dealing with the Western countries. Anyway, that is just my personal opinion, not relevant to this conversation. So, Ghana has navigated relationship between 2 rivalry superpowers in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, we are faced with new superpowers. the US and China. And the Cold War was really about weapons, and Ghana used to host a lot of peace conversations during the Cold War days. Now, we are no longer fighting with weapons, even though a lot of countries still hold weapons. We are fighting over the green future of the world, over money, over the internet. Actually, that's all it all boils down to. We are fighting over information now. Who controls all these things, right? That's what the US and China are fighting over now. And Ghana is strategically positioned in this way. Ghana's biggest trade partner is China. Ghana's biggest national security partner is the US. But I believe that President Mahama is navigating the US and China relationship massively, and I want to commend him for this. I'll explain why. Being unaligned means that you are a country that believes in partnership and boundaries. You partner with the superpower when you want to and set boundaries with them when you don't want to partner with them. Let me explain. Let me give you specific examples, right? Because let me start with China here. Because China is our closest trade partner, when China needs some favors when it comes to trade, Ghana was willing to offer them that help. So when President Trump put tariff on every country in the world, China wanted to respond by saying we are putting no tariff on any country in the world, which doesn't make sense because Chinese government already controls the entirety of trade in China. So whether China puts tariff on goods from other countries or not, it doesn't really make a big difference in the economy of China. But China just wanted to be in the conversation about tariffs. So China held a meeting with some countries in Africa and said it was putting 0% tariff on those countries. Ghana happened to be one of those countries. And Ghana and China went ahead and even announced specifically their end of the deal. Right now, the trade war between between China and the US is heightening again. And the president of Ghana went to China to put finishing touches to the 0% tariff. Basically, China and Ghana are collaborating when it comes to shading the US in relation to trade. That is partnership. And you do that with somebody who you make money with, right? Now, I said partnership and boundaries. How does Ghana set boundaries with China? You know, when it comes to the issue of galamsey or illegal mining in Ghana, Chinese nationals have been held to be culprits, right? So this year, a few months ago, the government of Ghana announced visa restrictions on Chinese nationals. They said Chinese nationals cannot come to Ghana in groups anymore. Each member of the group would have to seek visa and they will be examined as, individuals. I know you say this is something that already happened, but that was not the state of the relationship between China and Ghana when it comes to visa. So the visa restriction is an example of boundary Ghana has set with China. Ghana is not a weakling all the time. Sometimes we are, not all the time. Now, when it comes to partnership with the US wanted to deport people from the US to third-party countries. A lot of countries were not willing to collaborate with the US on it. But Ghana went to the US because the US put, some visa restrictions on Ghana and said, we'll talk, let's talk. And the US said, well, we want to be able to deport people to your country. And Ghana said, we will accept deportees from ECOWAS countries, West African countries, nobody outside of ECOWAS. This is a partnership. I'm not saying I agree. All the things I listed about the partnership and boundaries, I'm not saying I agree with the government. I'm saying that those are evidence of our non-aligned position. So Ghana accepted ECOWAS nationals from the US as a way of strengthening our national security relationship. Ghana and actually the FBI actually had a meeting last week. Ghana police and FBI had a meeting last week to talk about collaborations in relation to security because the FBI is doing a lot of security operations in Ghana. So when it comes to national security, Ghana and the US are really, really close. I don't want to go into some areas that are too controversial. I just wanted to give you these examples. Now, when it comes to boundaries, let me give you a beautiful one. You know, this year, President Trump said there is a white genocide in South Africa. And he invited the president of South Africa to the White House in the US. And what do South Africans call their president? Cupcake. President Cupcake went to the White House, and President Trump spoke to the president of South Africa very, very disrespectfully. And he didn't even allow that man to put in some words that he wanted to say. So everybody in the world was not happy with, one, the claims of white genocide in South Africa, which is not true. Two, the way he treated the president of a sovereign country. But only one president in the world did something publicly about it. The president of Ghana wrote an article in Guardian, a UK newspaper, to criticize President Trump for how he handled the relationship with South Africa. And he called President Trump's reactions an insult to all Africans, right? So while Ghana and the US still collaborate deeply when it comes to national security, the president of Ghana made it clear that we have our boundaries. Even another example, recently it was reported in the news that Abrego Garcia would be deported to Ghana as part of the third-party deportation program. And immediately, the foreign minister of Ghana went on Twitter and said that is not happening because Abrego Garcia is not from West Africa. Ghana only accepts deportees from West Africa. I know people were angry with Ghana for doing that, but we were very specific with our boundaries, right? And few hours after the foreign minister of Ghana said that, the US government announced that it was a mistake, a premature communication that made them say they were deporting Abrego Garcia to Ghana. If the foreign minister of Ghana had kept quiet, that conversation would have continued. But he killed that conversation immediately, right? It is important to understand that while Ghana is dealing with superpowers like the US and China, we still find ways to maintain our sovereignty and set boundaries with this government. This is an example of Ghana's non-aligned movement in action. Also important in this conversation, bigger conversation about lithium I'm having, right? This is the second part of my videos on lithium mining future in Ghana. And this video is to lay the picture about how Ghana and the US have been dealing with each other. In the third part of this series, which I'm going to record and upload 12 hours after uploading part 2, I'm going to talk about how Ghana and China are collaborating. How Ghana and the US are collaborating in the lithium conversation. So I gave a big picture view of Ghana's non-aligned position. Now we are going to zoom in on lithium in part 3. Talk to you.